the Lions, we know and have known for a week or so now that they are all go, and they're all go in the window that was always designed to be for Lions and Lions fans. Now, wonderful. We've had a little chat about this before we push play on this one. Greens, great news for the fans who, of course, fingers crossed, we're in a position where this can still go ahead in 12 months' time. But 12 months hence, we should have the maximum number heading down south from the British and Irish islands and following their team and hopefully seeing a successful tour all told. All up, great news on the latest from the Lions.
Yeah, look, it is, and I'm going to try and stay focused on the great news. The reality, I read a magazine called The Week, which gives you updates globally from all sorts of different newspapers and content from around the planet. And it sort of praises it for my short attention span brain. And the worry is with South Africa, what's going on, some areas going back into lockdown, is, Jimmy, I just feel unless there's a vaccine, I know that we're getting top heavy in terms of seriousness here, unless there's a vaccine, I love the idea that this tour will go ahead, but unless there's a vaccine, that's the only way it will go ahead, in my opinion.
Okay, well, look, let's pick up on that whilst we're talking about this. We appreciate that that good rugby news is the main focus of our attention today. But why then would the powers that be have, with the knowledge, no doubt that they have, which would probably go deeper than the knowledge you're speaking of, but I'm pretty sure the agreed knowledge around all of this is the uncertainty of the timeline for this virus. Yeah. Why would they nail on July and August then if there were the doubts that others share?
Look, I think they have to. I think you have to, what do they say? I always get the wrong order. They've got to plan with a mindset that says the tour will take place, because the amount of logistics and the quantities of player movement, of fan movement, has to be. I mean, we are going to get the economy up and running. We've got to get planning. We've got to think about the excitement of next year, and you got to lock out that window, try and nail down the broadcasting rights, and do it with a positivity that it will take place. Otherwise, you wouldn't leave your front door in the morning, and everyone would be stuck until the amazing scientists, probably from Oxford University or Imperial College London or wherever it might else come from around the planet, come up with this vaccine. I think otherwise you're paralysed until something does happen, and you have to focus on the timeline. Just listening to the chair of the Oxford vaccine organisation this morning on BBC News with Dan Walker, her view was no problem, vaccine will be sourced by 2021, but hopefully November, December. But that's hoping that this will happen. But I think you have to take their advice that that's the current timeline they're working to. So if that takes place, events taking place in July and August are fine. But we're reliant on these incredible scientists doing their amazing work.
Of course. We can only hope and plan from a rugby perspective and what is relatively insignificant work that we do, but hope that we can just be part of and share with those watching on at home the joy that is the Lions Tour. And as a part of all of that, and as part of the fan experience, well, it's all about picking teams. It's all about posturing over coaches and who will and who won't. You've had a bit of fun in the last week or so putting out your proposed Lions starting 15, which easiest job in the world, right? And I'm sure there's no dissent coming along your social media channels.
David Lewis, insert any other Welsh name, again, is just after me because I haven't picked 15 Welsh people. It's extraordinary. My Scottish mates are like, "Why have you only got 2 in?" I thought I was doing well to get 2 in. And then I'm like, so here I am getting involved because it's quite fun having a chat with you on this front, but you just can't go back and respond to everyone. And there are clearly areas. I mean, how you can leave out Alan Wynne-Jones after his career, but you've got to feel the youth. Mara, 24, 25, James Ryan went 20-odd game international test matches before he lost the game, and he's one of the bright young things. and AWJ might be about 63 by the time the next Lions tour. I mean, Welsh people will be wanting Alan Wynne-Jones to be captain of the Lions tour, not just this one, to Australia in 4 years' time. I mean, they'll want him there in 2025. That's the way you are with your heroes. The one that was tricky, which I get, leaving out Jonathan Davies, hadn't played any rugby post-World Cup, injured, the king of the Lions in 2017. But how do you pick someone who hasn't played in so long when someone like Manu rips the All Blacks apart in the first 5 minutes of a World Cup semi-final? How do you not pick a large contingent of English people? I'm not apologising for my selection. The midfield was tight. Henshaw and Tuolangi, I understand. Tompkins went great guns, and Jonathan Davies and Gary Ringrose. I'm not blind to these people. I didn't just leave them out on purpose. I don't think you'd get anyone agreeing on all 15 ever. It's just sticking your nose, my giant nose, above the parapet to be shot at was enjoyable for a couple of hours, and had to turn my phone off.
I'll bet. Part of the fun of it is all that interaction, but I guess one aspect we can take with maybe a little bit more of a long-term view and maybe a little bit more certainty is who Warren Gatland will take as his wider coaching team. We know how challenging the task is of going to South Africa. Gatland himself knows better than anybody what lays in wait, and we'll talk about Gatland's run of form with his own Chiefs side down in New Zealand in a little while. But When he brings pedigree, who does he take with him? Because he won't have the pick of every coach that he took with him, perhaps to New Zealand or Australia. They've gone on, a lot of these guys, to other career aspirations and places of work. How do you line up the people around Gatland?
That's a great question. And the reality with Warren is he started with a group and then just tweaked it for each consecutive tour, just changed a voice here and there. And the classic example would be Sean Edwards was his defence coach, and that switched to Andy Farrell, and that was the main change. The ever presence have been great Lions men like Neil Jenkins from the kicking side. Obviously, Rob Howley has been with him on previous tours, and that might be difficult. Not impossible, might be difficult, because I know Rob is now allowed to operate in the game of rugby again. But that might open up a slot for someone like a Gregor Townsend, who was a spectacular Lion in 1997. So you've got the South Africa connection, you've got the quality of his coaching. But again, contractually, he's in charge of Scotland, getting a year off. May not need a year off, sort of 6 to 9 months off. Could you do that? Or could you coach Scotland in the Six Nations all the way up until the tour, which I don't think is impossible. Someone like a Gregor Townsend would be someone that you would, I think, at some stage in the future, hope to see with a Lions badge on his lapel again on a coaching format. But it's the contracts that need to be unwound. It's the length of time off that the best coaches, and the best coaches are sort of in employment with unions, will be a fascinating one for him to look at. I mean, you could look at someone like a John Mitchell now, defensively, all the great work he's done with England. One of the ones I'm not embarrassed to say he's a great friend of mine, but I think has risen from the ashes. I mean, absolutely risen from the ashes. Stuart Lancaster. And the reality is he does everything at Leinster. And I don't want to undermine other players, but he does attack and he does both sides of the ball. And often you're a specific coach. By bringing both sides of the ball, he has the ability, if Warren definitely wants to try and get Barrel released from Ireland to go with him to do his defence side of things, then Stuart Lancaster could do attack. And sort of vice versa, if Gregor Townsend comes in to do the attack, Stuart Lancaster could drop in to do the defence. Might he take someone like a Sam Warburton, who I know Wales are using as a sort of ruck, a contact area coach, very very new in his career and what he's doing from that perspective, but again, a real option. Richard Hill, sort of team manager, but I think that role is filled at the moment. But again, I think what you want to do is you want to have one eye on the future, but can you have a link to the past? And that's why coaches like Graham Rowntree were such good ones, and Rob Howley for the Lions, because they've worn that jersey. They understand what it means to be a Lion, both on and off the field, and therefore their ability to really allow 35 blokes the best possible chance in such a short space of time. You're going to IP that people already have rather than trying to reinvent the wheel in the space of a week.
Yeah, got to remember 8 games in 5 weeks and very limited time in the lead up to it. Gatland's got to have spoken to the guys he wants, surely.
Yeah, I mean, sounding out. I mean, it's really interesting. I have huge admiration for Warren, but again, you have those coaches you have a good link to when you're trying to commentate on games and write about games and stay fresh. And then there are those other coaches that you really respect, but perhaps only communicate with when you're on tour. So I don't know Warren well enough to have had a chat to understand where he's at on that. But certainly, you're a year out now, and I think he will be in the stage now of picking up phones to potential coaches that he'd want to go with him.
And do you hold any concerns that a coach can lose their Midas touch, that a coach can lose the feel good, the winning factor? And I'm asking, of course, about Warren Gatland, because he'll be hanging up his Chiefs hat soon enough and putting the Lions one back on. And right now he is taking a hammering in New Zealand. They expected great things. He came as the so-called best coach in the world, and they're 0 from 5, as you say.
Yeah, it's not what he'd have written, would he, after that sort of the terrible way the New Zealand press treated him in 2017. And I think it was that they dressed him up as a clown on the front of the New Zealand Herald. And then, of course, he delivers a 1-1 test series. And the players were brilliant, and they sort of had to eat humble pie. But the journalists will have just been waiting and waiting and waiting. And it's exactly what some of them, I'm not going to put words in their mouth, but they've been waiting for this to happen on the back of everything that took place in New Zealand. It's unfortunate. I think the Chiefs are playing some great stuff. You're in the Champions League every week down in New Zealand. And you think of the calibre of the players that are available to all the different teams. Do I think has his reputation been dented slightly in New Zealand? Yes, but it was starting from a different starting point. Has his reputation in the Northern Hemisphere been dented in any shape or form? No, it's not that it's out of sight, out of mind, but those players that will have played under him that he will take to South Africa, be they the Welsh players he took to the semi-final of the World Cup just recently, or a lot of players he took to New Zealand in 2017, they'll walk over broken glass for him. They'll run through a fire for him. They'll do what needs to be done, and they'll get straight back on the same hymn sheet really quickly. It'll be a frustrating time for Warren, but there's no one at the moment in the Northern Hemisphere remotely thinking Warren shouldn't be Lions coach in 2021.